You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, we got a quarterback. I think. Rickie Collins from LSU. What do you need to know about him? Well, you've come to the right place. He is a former four-star high school recruit at LSU not too long ago. We're talking about 2023 recruiting cycle. So he has spent 2 seasons in college football, but he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining still because one of those years was a redshirt year. Collins is 6'2", 205 pounds, so that's pretty good size for a quarterback, especially for someone that's pretty mobile. He doesn't have a lot of passing attempts in college football. I'll get to that in a moment. So from his high school scouting report on 24/7 Sports, I'll paraphrase it for you right now. This is someone who's got good athleticism, above average mobility, but what can get Rickie Collins in trouble is his footwork, which could lead to inaccurate passes. So this is someone who's going to need to be coached up by this Syracuse staff. My thoughts, okay? Rickie Collins has thrown 7 passes in college football. 7. Now, funny enough, he's 7 for 7, so he has never thrown an incomplete pass. Now, I imagine he's going to throw an incomplete pass at Syracuse, but that's okay. Even Kyle McCord last year, over 30% of the time, he threw an incompletion. It happens. Every quarterback throws incompletions. I just found that funny. He went 7 for 7. This is honestly a move that, I'll be honest, we're going to have to rely on the staff, and we're going to have to trust the staff that they know what they're doing with Rickie Collins. I'll start with the pros, okay? The number one pro of Rickie Collins is that he does have upside. There's got to be untapped potential there. You don't become a 4-star recruit that's good enough to play at LSU by accident. Clearly, there's something there. So maybe with the right coaching, he could live up to his potential. And this is not a 4-star recruit from 2020 or 2021, which is a long time ago, and you're asking someone to finally live up to their potential. No, this is from 2023. So it's not too long. The other pro is this. He's got 3 years of college eligibility remaining. One of the very first things that we discussed this offseason was what type of quarterback do we want in the portal? What type of, do we want a one-year rental or a multi-year guy? All things considered, all things being equal. Now, obviously, you'd prefer the better talent over everything, but if you had to choose, talent being the same, you would rather a multi-year transfer, because if you get the multi-year transfer and it, in theory, works out for you, then in theory, you don't have to, if Rickie Collins succeeds at Syracuse, if he succeeds and he stays for all 3 years, we're not worrying about quarterback until the 2028 offseason, because he would play in 2025, he would play in 2026, he would play in 2027, which means the 2028 offseason is when we're next going to have to worry about a quarterback if Rickie Collins pans out and if he decides to stay all 3 years. But those are 2 big ifs. And that leads into the cons of Rickie Collins. He does have upside. Yes, that's a big pro. But we have no idea if he's actually good or not. And this is where we got to trust the staff. We have no clue. There's no way to really know. You don't know until a guy is thrown into the fire, or if Rickie Collins is fighting for the quarterback 1 job and doesn't earn it in camp. That's another way to know. But assuming he gets on the field, that's when you'll truly know about Rickie Collins. So what I have written in my notes is we're not going to know if the guy's good or not until potentially August 30th, which is the season opener against Tennessee in Atlanta. We got no clue. It's not like Kyle McCord, where Kyle McCord, for all of his quote-unquote failures or whatever you want to call it at Ohio State, you still knew that he was going to be pretty good. Or at least I did. And many of you guys suspected the same thing, that McCord would probably have a pretty good year at Syracuse. Maybe not what we predicted in terms of how good he actually was. But the point is that McCord had pedigree. You knew. You had an idea. He was a starter at Ohio State the entire year. Rickie Collins, no, not a starter at LSU. There's not a problem with not being a starter at LSU because obviously it's one of the top programs and they have a top quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier. And he's coming back another year, so there was no way for Rickie Collins to get on the field. The concern that I have, which is why I say, do we really know if he's good or not, is he didn't earn the backup job there. He lost out to Vanderbilt transfer A.J. Swann late in the season. I kind of find that strange. To me, that's a red flag. Really? Second college season and you can't be the backup? I understand not being in the starter. I get it. But not being the backup, I don't know. I hope there's upside there. There should be. It wasn't too long ago when he was a 4-star recruit. But is he actually good? That's a big question. Number two, again, it feeds in line with the pro of having 3 years of college eligibility. Just because he's got multiple years of eligibility does not mean he is going to stay for multiple years. The example that I give is Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy was a top quarterback prospect at Texas, had no path to playing time, none. He couldn't play. They had Quinn Ewers coming back another year. They recruited Arch Manning in high school. Malik Murphy, sorry, man, you're not playing at Texas. So what does he do last offseason? He transfers to Duke, where he gets an opportunity to be the day one starter. And guess what? He did really well. And Duke went 9-3 this season. One of the better teams in the ACC. Now, why do I bring up Malik Murphy? Well, he had multiple years when he transferred to Duke, but guess what? He re-entered the portal this offseason. Oh. Now, I'm not saying that if Rickie Collins bursts onto the scene next year for Syracuse that he wouldn't come back. In fact, it's impossible to know if he would come back or not, but you would hope he would. What I'm trying to point out is that it's not a guarantee. That just because a guy has multiple years does not mean that he's going to stay for multiple years. This is the transfer portal. This is the wild, wild west out here. So overall, when you weigh the pros and cons and you look at the scouting report of him, we're going to have to trust the coaching staff on this. Is Rickie Collins really the answer for Syracuse football? I think after year one, this coaching staff deserves the benefit of the doubt. It was a brand new staff that came together. And they went 9-3, exceeding my expectations. Maybe exceeding your expectations. But I'm not going to necessarily walk back what I said about Rickie Collins a couple weeks ago now that he's actually committed to Syracuse. This is my honest opinion. It was not, I guess I'll spoil a little bit of the podcast later on here, but this was not my number one choice in the portal. Do I trust the staff? I do. And guess what? Whether I'm right or wrong about this move has no bearing on what actually happens. So we'll see. We'll see. I trust the staff. Hopefully they get it right with Rickie Collins.